Hello everyone! So, a few months ago, I took an interest into the Battlefield games, and decided that Battlefield 1 seemed to be the most enjoyable one. However, it was too expensive for me to buy at the time, so I stuck it in my wishlist and waited for it to go on sale. And lo and behold, it recently went on sale for 92% off, and it was less than a fiver, so I immediately got it. The first day I got it, I played 3 hours of it, and I've been playing it for a good few hours. I think it's a pretty interesting multiplayer game, so I thought I'd make a review of it to share my thoughts on it and whether you should get it. Now, there's a lot of things in this game to talk about, so this video will be a bit longer than my videos normally are. So with all that being said, here's my review of Battlefield 1. Battlefield 1 was developed by DICE and published by EA on the 21st of October 2016. It was released for Xbox One, PS4 and PC. It is a first-person shooter set in World War I, where you fight on the battlefield, and is a single-player and multiplayer game. Now, even though the title is Battlefield 1, it is definitely not the first installment in the Battlefield franchise, and is in fact the 13th Battlefield game, which is nearly the last of the Battlefield franchise. On PC, it is played on the Origin launcher, and it is rated PEGI 18 for violence and bad language. Since EA is EA, you have to pay extra money for their premium pass for certain aspects of the game, which is really annoying and scummy by EA, but that's the way it is. So I just wanted to clarify that in this review, I'm just going to be talking about the content that you get in the base game of Battlefield 1. Although it is mainly a multiplayer game, there's also a few single player campaign stories that you can do in Battlefield 1, which I'm really fond of, and I'm glad that DICE didn't just sweep it under the rug and only do multiplayer. How the campaign works is that there's basically 6 different war stories that you can play through from the perspective of one person. There are different chapters to each story. I've already played through one of the campaign stories, and it's alright. The characters are quite interesting, but the plot is a bit meh. But I don't think the campaigns are supposed to be extremely well written stories. I think they were made to show just how horrifying it was to be fighting in the First World War. Unfortunately, the stories are quite short, and could easily be completed within a day or two. But it's still great that you can play single player in Battlefield 1. However, if you're getting this game purely just to play it single player, I'd say there are much better alternatives to play, and it wouldn't be really worth it for the full price of around €50. Now, for the rest of this video, I'll be mainly talking about the multiplayer in Battlefield 1. There are a wide variety of different game modes to play in Battlefield 1. The most popular one being Conquest, where there are a huge amount of players, the max being 64, and you try to capture and hold several points. Whichever team holds the most points and kills the most of the other team's players wins. Other game modes include Domination, which is like Conquest but there are no vehicles and the maps are much smaller. Rush, where one team has to defend 2 points from an attacking team. The attackers aim to find the defending team's telegraph post and arm it with a bomb. When the telegraph posts are destroyed, the defenders fall back to the next sector and try to protect the telegraph posts there. The attacking team wins if all of the telegraph posts are destroyed. The defending team win if all of the telegraph posts aren't blown up, or they kill all of the attacking team. Frontlines, which is like a mix of Conquest and Rush, where each team has to try and capture and hold a certain point. The points are in a symmetrical pattern and you can only capture 1 point at a time, so when a team captures a point, they get closer and closer to the other team's base. Once you get to the other team's base, you try to destroy both their telegraphs. Shock operations, where there are multiple sectors with objectives the attacking team must capture. If the attackers secure all of the sectors on all of the maps, they win. If the defenders hold a point or neutralize all the attackers, they win. Team Deathmatch, which is a team deathmatch, and War Pigeons, where 2 teams try to get messenger pigeons to call for artillery barrages. Once you find the pigeon, you must bring it to a safe location, write the message, and send it away. The side that calls the most artillery strikes wins. So overall, the game modes in Battlefield 1 are amazingly enjoyable, and since there are so many of them, you'd be hard pressed to be bored while playing Battlefield 1. In Battlefield 1, there are several classes you can choose to play as. The main 4 classes are Assault, Medic, Support, and Scout. The Assault class are used for short to medium range combat, as they have weapons such as SMGs and shotguns. They also specialise in destroying all types of vehicles, from tanks to airplanes, as they can equip explosive devices. If you are the aggressive type of player, and you like close quarters combat, the Assault class is for you. The Medic class are the only class that can heal. so it is therefore the main focus of their class. They can equip a revive kit, which can, you guessed it, revive dead teammates that haven't skipped to the deployment screen, which so many do. They can also equip bandages, which heal themselves and their teammates. They are good at medium to long range combat, as they have weapons such as semi-automatic rifles, which are designed to be more accurate than fast. If you aren't really the aggressive type of player, but you still want to get a decent amount of kills and heal your teammates, the medic class is for you. The support class are similar to the medic class, in that they help the team a lot. Supports are responsible for dropping ammo boxes so that you can top up on ammo, repairing your armor and vehicles so that they don't get destroyed, and to set up mortars. They are armed with LMGs, so they are good at close to medium range combat. If you are a team player, and you like to help your team out a lot, while also being able to hold your own in a gunfight, the support class is for you. The scout class are used for long range combat, as they are armed with sniper rifles. They're pretty decent at taking down vehicles as well, as they have special bullets that are designed to do more damage against vehicles. If you're not really a team player and you prefer to lie in the back getting snipes, the scout class is for you. There are also pilot, cavalry and tanker classes if you decide to spawn in on a plane, horse or tank, but they just get different weapons, so I won't be going in depth on them. The maps in Battlefield 1 are great. From the wide, open maps like Sinai Desert, to the tighter maps like St. Quentin, which has the infamous trenches that were so popular in the First World War, no two maps are at all similar to each other, and they actually feel like somewhere that wars could be fought. I like the dark tone of a lot of the maps, and the mud and dirtiness of some of the maps, and seeing buildings completely destroyed and on fire really emphasises how brutal World War I was. Aside from how amazing they look, you can really feel the tension when you're fearing getting sniped as you run across an open field, or when you're capturing a point alone. I also think that there's the perfect amount of cover on most of the maps. Not too little so that you don't feel helpless, but not too much so you can play a bit risky. You can also get some pretty cheeky flanks on the enemy team if you're on horseback. So overall, I'd say that the maps in Battlefield 1 are visually stunning, enjoyable and mostly balanced. There's an absolute huge variety of weapons to choose from in Battlefield 1. Your weapons are suited to your class, so you can choose whatever you like. However, when you've settled upon a class that you like, there are many different weapons that you can choose from, and you can pick the weapon to do the exact job you want it to do. The customization of weapons is pretty bland. All you can really change is the crosshair, the magnification, and the barrel. It isn't nearly as good as games such as Call of Duty Warzone, but it kinda can't have that level of customization, as it's set over 100 years ago. You also have these gadgets that you can equip, that change based on what class you are. So like, as previously mentioned, if you are a medic, you can equip the medical syringe to resurrect your dead teammates. You can also equip throwables, and these things called specializations, which act like little perks in game. You also have a rank for each class. You will rank up by getting kills and just playing the game in general. As you rank up, you will be able to gain access to more weapons. The gameplay in Battlefield 1 is extremely enjoyable, especially if you haven't played any Battlefield game before, like myself. It's definitely the most immersed I've ever been in a first-person shooter. Everything is just so realistic. From how it feels when you're moving around, to how explosions feel, to how it feels when you're getting shot at, everything just feels so effortless and smooth. Even though games such as Call of Duty pride itself on its realism, and while Call of Duty definitely feels realistic, it just doesn't feel as immersive as Battlefield 1 does. I think it's the atmosphere that DICE have created. It feels much more sinister and true to life, because in a game like Call of Duty, you just hop in the modern day and it feels sort of lighthearted. But I think it's the atmosphere of World War I where you're actually fighting a brutal, dark war, and you can hear the rumbling of explosions in the distance, and your teammates' actual characters yelling around you, and the planes flying overhead, and it really just feels like you've been transported back in time, and you're there, on the battlefield, which is absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure it's no coincidence on DICE's part. While I'm on the topic of realism, the attention to detail in Battlefield 1 absolutely cannot be overlooked. If you go prone, your gun will get dirty, and if you stay in the rain long enough, you'll be able to see the mud eventually wash off. Similar to Red Dead Redemption 2, these tiny little details just further immerse you into Battlefield 1. I really enjoy using the older weapons, especially the older rifles. There's something so nice about reloading a clip of ammo for every 5 bullets, and timing your reload so it's as fast as possible. I haven't even mentioned how satisfying it feels to get the final shot and secure the kill while you're on the verge of death. Also, in some game modes like Conquest, when you're losing pretty badly, a behemoth such as an armoured train, an airship, or a battleship will spawn in and be available to use by the losing team. These are incredibly powerful and can completely turn the game around, and they're also incredibly fun to use. I think it's a very unique concept to have something like that being given to the losing team to give them a chance to turn the tables on the winning team, and I really enjoy it. So yeah, overall I'm massively enjoying the gameplay of Battlefield 1, and it is 100% the most immersive gameplay in any multiplayer game that I've ever played. With my settings set at the very max, at 1080p, my GTX 1660 6GB can run Battlefield 1 and get on average around 70 FPS. The recommended hardware for PC is as follows. For the processor, for AMD it's the FX 8350 Wraith, or for Intel it's the Core i7 4790. For RAM it's 16GB, for hard drive space it's 50GB, and for graphics card, for AMD it's the RX 484GB, and for Nvidia it's the GTX 1060 3GB. So it's pretty demanding on PC hardware wise, and the hard drive space was closer to 80GB than to 50GB for me, but I think it should be, because this game looks absolutely fantastic. I would say the graphics in Battlefield 1 would rival that of Red Dead Redemption 2 itself. Particularly in campaign, Battlefield 1 may just be the nicest looking game I have ever played. There's one scene in the campaign where a tank was driving through a forest, and I think it may have just been the foggy effect, but I remember being completely blown away, and genuinely thinking I was looking at a scene that was filmed on an actual camera. It was the first time in all of my years playing video games that I honestly thought a video game looked exactly like real life. For some reason, I don't really hear people talk that much about just how stunning the graphics look in Battlefield 1, but for me, the graphics are an absolute 10 out of 10. As for the audio, as I mentioned previously, it is extremely immersive. I think actually hearing your character and your teammates' characters actually shouting orders and requests out loud hugely contributes to the immersion. There's a bit of this in games like Call of Duty Warzone, but it's not used nearly as much as it is in Battlefield 1, and something about actually hearing you and your teammates' screams when you spot an enemy or when you're pushing an objective makes you actually feel like you're on the battlefield, and not just playing a video game where you're on the battlefield. As I also mentioned, the ambient sounds of gunshots, vehicles and explosions only further contributes to the immersion of Battlefield 1. So here are the pros and the cons of Battlefield 1. The pros. It has very immersive gameplay, it has fantastic graphics, single player is available, it feels like each class is actually contributing to the team, it's actually really educational and informative about the events of World War I. The matches aren't too short or too long. It may just be because I'm early into this game, but I feel like I'd spend hundreds of hours playing Battlefield 1 and not get bored. Also, just as a little pro, I really like the background music. It's not often I say that, but the music between attacks really hypes you up for the next attack. Even the lobby music in Battlefield 1 sounds pretty good and isn't obnoxious like other multiplayer games. And you can destroy pretty much anything you see, which feels so refreshing. However, the cons. It feels like there's not a lot you can do against a vehicle when you're on foot. Not all content is available with the base game, and you have to spend more money if you want to get certain content. The servers are either jam-packed or empty, so it takes a while to get into a game. Although there are a lot of game modes to play, the vast majority of servers are for Conquest. It is a very large file size. And similar to Valorant, there's no death cam, which really annoys me, and I don't know why it hasn't been added in yet. It's also especially annoying that they haven't added it in, as it would work especially well in Battlefield 1. Instead of waiting ages to deploy, and holding space down to go to the next screen, you could watch a replay of how you died, which would allow medics to get much more resurrections. Everyone's happy. And lastly, although this doesn't happen extremely often, on PC there's a good few hackers in Battlefield 1 that pop up every few games and ruin the match for you. Normally, it's inevitable in any multiplayer games that you're going to run into a hacker, but it happens more often in Battlefield 1, and DICE haven't given us any way to deal with them, like being able to vote to kick them out like in CSGO. So here's my overall opinion. Battlefield 1 is an absolutely brilliant game. Especially since this is my first time playing a Battlefield game, I'm really glad that I decided to start with Battlefield 1, as I've heard that some Battlefield games aren't that great. I really appreciate how even though I mainly play as a medic, it actually feels like I'm helping the team. I don't feel like my heals are getting my team nowhere, as I do in other games. I've already played over 15 hours of Battlefield 1, and I honestly think I'll be playing it a lot over the next few months, or maybe even years, and I really look forward to getting better at it. I also really appreciate how DICE added single player to the game, and I hope that they keep doing that in the future Battlefield games to come. I really like the destructibility of Battlefield 1. There's something about seeing a building actually crumble when it gets shot by a tank, and not just stay there as if nothing happened, that is so satisfying to me. The World War I setting makes the game very interesting as well. I've never played a game in the time period of World War I before, and it was really fascinating to use the different weapons that they had back then, and it also gave me an even deeper appreciation for the soldiers who fought in the war. Particularly in the war stories, we see just how much they lost and how terrifying it must have been to fight in the war, as well as how mentally scarring it must have been for those who survived it, to remember the horrors that they saw in the war. It gives the game more of a dark undertone that I enjoy a lot. The education aspect of it is also really unique, and I'm more intrigued than I thought it would be in it. On top of that, and as I've mentioned a lot in this video, I am completely in love with how immersive the game feels. The sounds and the graphics of Battlefield 1 are so on point, and the attention to detail is amazing. Although, as I said in the pros and the cons, I really dislike how hard it is to get into a full server, since whenever I try to play a game by quick match, I'm just waiting for ages. That's probably my biggest complaint about Battlefield 1. But apart from that, and a few other minor annoyances, Battlefield 1 is an absolutely outstanding game, and I'd say it would take over Valorant as my current favourite multiplayer game. So, is Battlefield 1 worth it? I'd say yeah. Even for the full price of €50, I'd definitely say it's worth it. But as I always do, I just stick it in your wishlist and wait for it to go on sale, or buy it second hand. Regardless, I'd say that you'd 100% enjoy Battlefield 1. I definitely am. Its immersive gameplay, outstanding graphics, and enjoyable classes to choose from provide for hours upon hours of enjoyment, and I'd very highly recommend getting it if you're looking for a new multiplayer game to play, but you also want a bit of single player campaign to do. So thank you so much for watching this video. I know this video is longer than usual, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be the longest video on my channel, but there was a lot in this game that I wanted to talk about, as I've been really enjoying it over the past week. I'm thinking of doing more videos on Battlefield 1 as I get better at it, like guides or something along those lines. So if you think there's anything Battlefield 1 related that you'd like to see, please leave it down in the comments below. What do you think about Battlefield 1? If you have it, do you enjoy it? And how do you think it compares to other Battlefield games? I'd love to know what you think in the comments below. You know the drill by now. Like, dislike, subscribe, Instagram's at RombarkYT. This video's getting way too long. Take care of yourselves.